Welcome to new video. Today we will explore Aristotle, his classification of science, logic as organon, critique of Plato's theory of idea, the theory of causation, the concept of form and matter, the potentiality and actuality concept, and the view of soul and God. Let's start with a brief introduction to Aristotle. Aristotle was one of the greatest philosophers in the history of Western thought. He was born in 384 BCE in Stagira, a small town in northern Greece. Unlike his teacher Plato, Aristotle focused more on observation and experience rather than abstract ideals. He studied for about 20 years in Plato's academy, but later developed his own independent philosophical system. Aristotle believed that knowledge begins with the senses, what we see, hear, and experience in the real world. He later found his own school in Athens, called the Lyceum, where he conducted research in various fields such as biology, logic, ethics, politics, and metaphysics. His approach was systematic, organized, and deeply analytical. What makes Aristotle unique is his attempt to classify and organize all human knowledge into different branches. He wanted to understand not just what we know, but also how different kinds of knowledge are related. Aristotle divided all human knowledge into three main categories. The classification is one of his most important contributions because it shapes how knowledge is studied even today. First classification is the theoretical science. These sciences are concerned with knowledge for its own sake. Their goal is to discover truth, not to produce anything or perform any action. Second, practical science. These deal with human action and behavior. Their aim is to guide conduct and help us live a good life. Ethics and politics fall under this category. Third category is productive or poetic science. These are concerned with creation or production. They involve making things like art, poetry, or craftsmanship. This classification shows that Aristotle understood knowledge as having different purposes: knowing truth, guiding action, creating things. Among these, he considered theoretical science the highest form of knowledge because they aim purely at truth. The theoretical science, according to Aristotle, are those that seek knowledge simply for the sake of understanding reality. They are not concerned with action or production but with discovering universal truth. He divided theoretical science into three major branches. First, physics, natural science. Physics studies the natural world, everything that changes or moves. It includes the study of nature, living organism, motion, and the physical universe. For Aristotle, nature is full of purpose. Everything in nature has a goal or function, which he called telos, end or purpose. For example, a seed naturally grows into a tree because that is its purpose. Second, mathematics. Mathematics deal with abstract objects like number, shape, and pattern. Unlike physical objects, mathematical entities do not change and are not affected by time or motion. Mathematics is more precise than physics because it deals with certain and logical necessity. However, it is still somewhat connected to the physical world because we often apply mathematical ideas to real things. Third, metaphysics. First, philosophy. Metaphysics is the highest and most abstract form of theoretical science. It studies being as being, that is, the fundamental nature of reality. Metaphysics goes beyond the physical world and asks deep questions such as what does it mean to exist? What are the ultimate causes of thing? What is substance? Aristotle also introduced the idea of unmoved mover, a first cause that explains motion in the universe without itself being moved. This concept plays a central role in his metaphysical system. In Aristotle's view, these three theoretical sciences form a hierarchy. Physics studies changing thing, mathematics studies unchanging but abstract thing, metaphysics studies ultimate reality. Because metaphysics deal with the highest level of truth, Aristotle considered it the most important of all science. Let's talk about practical science. For Aristotle, practical science are concerned with human action. Their goal is not just to know the truth, but to guide behavior and help us live well. The two main branches of practical science are: first, ethics. Ethics studies how individuals should live. Aristotle believed that the ultimate goal of human life is eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or flourishing. But this happiness is not about pleasure or wealth. It is about living a life of virtue, developing good habits, and using reason to make balanced choice. He introduced the idea of golden mean, where virtue lies between two extremes. For example, courage lies between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity lies between stinginess and extravagance. Second, politics. Politics is the extension of ethics to society. Aristotle believed that humans are political animals, meaning we naturally live in communities. The goal of politics is to create a just society where citizens can achieve a good and virtuous life. The state exists not just for survival, but for living well. Let's talk about productive science or poetic science. Productive science are concerned with making or creating things. Unlike theoretical science, which seek truth, and practical science, which guide action, productive science aim at production. These include art, poetry, craftsmanship, rhetoric. For example, creation involves applying knowledge to bring something into existence. A sculptor shaping marble or a poet composing verses both fall under this category. He also explored art deeply in his work, Poetics, where he analyzed tragedy, storytelling, and emotional impact, especially the idea of catharsis or emotional purification. Logic as an organon. Aristotle did not classify logic as a separate science. Instead, he treated it as a tool, which he called a organon, meaning instrument. Logic is the method we use to think clearly, reason correctly, and arrive at truth. His most important contribution to logic is the syllogism, a form of reasoning where a conclusion follows necessarily from two premises. Here is a simple example. All humans are mortal. Socrates is a human. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. This structure ensures that if the premises are true, the conclusion must also be true. Astrological works are later collected under the title Organon, forming the foundation of formal logic for centuries. Critique of Plato's theory of ideas. Aristotle strongly criticized the theory of forms or ideas proposed by his teacher Plato. Plato's view. Plato argued that true reality lies in a separate world of perfect, unchanging forms or ideas. The physical world, according to him, is only a shadow or imitation of that higher reality. Aristotle criticism. Aristotle rejects this separation between the world of ideas and the physical world. His critique can be understood through several key points. No separation of form and matter. Aristotle argued that form do not exist in a separate realm. Instead, form and matter are united in individual object. For example, a chair's form, its design, cannot exist independently of the actual chair. Second, the third man argument. Aristotle points out a logical problem in Plato's theory. If a form explains similarities between objects, then we would need another form to explain the similarity between the forms and the object, and this leads to an infinite regress. Third, forms do not explain change. Plato's forms are static and unchanging. Aristotle argued that this makes them unable to explain change and motion, which are essential features of the real world. Fourth argument is knowledge comes from experience. Unlike Plato, Aristotle believed that knowledge begins with sense experience. We understand universal concept by observing particular thing, not by recalling abstract form. Fifth, reality is in this world. For Aristotle, reality is not divided into two separate worlds. The real world is the world we experience, and it contains both forms and matter together. This critique marks a major shift in philosophy. From Plato's abstract idealism to Aristotle's more grounded and empirical approach. Let's talk about Aristotle's theory of causation. Aristotle believed that to truly understand anything, we must ask why it exists or happens. He explained this through his famous doctrine of the four causes, four different ways of explaining a thing. First, material cause. This is what something is made of. For example, a statue is made of marble. Second, formal cause. This is form or structure, the design or essence of thing. The shape of the statue gives it identity. Third, efficient cause. This is the source of change or the agent that brings something into existence. In the case of a statue, it is the sculptor. Fourth, final cause. This is the purpose or goal, telos, of a thing. Why was the statue made? Perhaps for decoration or worship? For Aristotle, the final cause is especially important because he believed everything in nature has a purpose. This idea that nature is goal-directed is known as teleology. Let's know how Aristotle explained reality through the concept of form and matter, often called Hylomorphism. Every physical object is a combination of matter, hyl, the substance or material out of which something is made. Form, morphe, the essence or structure that makes a thing what it is. For example, a wooden table. Matter, wood. Form, the structure of a table. Unlike Plato, Aristotle argued that form does not exist separately. it exists within the object itself. This idea allows Aristotle to explain the real world without dividing into two separate realms. Everything we encounter is a unity of form and matter. Another key concept in Aristotle's philosophy is the distinction between potentiality and actuality. Potentiality, dunamis, the capacity or possibility to become something. Actuality, energia, the fulfillment or realization of that potential. For example, a seed has the potential to become a tree. A fully grown tree is the actuality of that potential. This concept helps Aristotle explain change and development. Change is the process of moving from potentiality to actuality. It also connects with his idea of purpose. Everything strives to realize its full potential. The soul or psyche. Aristotle's view of the soul is very different from Plato's. He did not see the soul as something separate from the body. Instead, he defined the soul as the form of a living body, the principle that gives life. In simple terms, the soul is what makes a living thing alive. He classified soul into three types. Vegetative soul, found in plants, responsible for growth and nutrition. Sensitive soul, found in animal, include perception, desire and movement. Rational soul, found in human, include reasoning and intellect. Human are unique because they possess all three levels, especially the capacity for rational thought. Aristotle's concept of God is philosophical rather than religious. He argued that everything in motion must be caused by something else. But this chain of cause cannot go back infinitely. Therefore, there must be a first cause, something that causes motion without itself being moved. He called this the Unmoved Mover. Key feature of Aristotle's God. It is pure actuality, no potentiality at all. It is eternal and unchanging. It does not create the world in time but sustains motion as a final cause. It moves things not by force but as an object of desire or attraction. In the other words, everything in the universe moves toward perfection, and this ultimate perfection is God. This completes the major framework of Aristotle's philosophy, where reality is explained through causes, structured by form and matter, driven by potential and actuality, animated by the soul, and ultimately grounded in the unmoved mover. If you are still watching, I hope you are finding this content useful. Please like and share this video, subscribe to the channel and share your thought in the comment. Your support motivates me to create even more content like this.